Public meeting to order and start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. If any member of the public would like to comment on an agenda item, please fill out one of the blue comment cards and give it to the board secretary. If you're attending virtually through Zoom, place comments in the chat and the board secretary will call on you at the appropriate time. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Current policy allows for any item on the agenda to be open for comment. Communications 2.0, communications and presentations. Are there any written reports?
There has not.
Speak, Tanya? And they want to talk? 2.2 financial report. Are there any questions? 2.3 full faith and credit project report. Any questions? 2.4 personnel report. 2.5 enrollment report. Moving on to 3.0. All items on the consent agenda can be approved by a single motion unless a member of the board or superintendent swinging requests an item to be changed, removed, or voted on separately. Are there any changes or addition to the board agenda or to the minutes from last meeting? Need a motion?
Member Schmidt, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I still like a second.
Is that a second?
I second.
Tanya, can I have a roll call vote?
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Goodall,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Brownell,
Yes.
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Wilkins.
Yes. On to 4.0 reports. 4.1 Parkside. Hello.
All right, good evening, everybody. We have a handout for you. I'd like to introduce my wonderful behavior intervention specialist. Here you go, just this follow along. This is Jackie Worthington. This is her first year in the district with us. And so I'm going to be here to help answer any questions, but it's really about her kind of just discussing what tier 2, tier 3 interventions are like and kind of what we do district-wide, but using specific information from Parkside. Okay, and then we'll stop along the way if you have questions. And like I said, we'll just use this and she'll guide you through, Gary, as we go through them on the handouts. Okay, so here we go.
All right, so we're just going to talk about, like Rob said, the tier 2 and tier 3 behavior interventions that we use at Parkside. So all schools use tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 behavior interventions, but they can look different depending on which school that you're at. So we're just going to outline some that we use and why we think they're beneficial for our school. So.
Does the clicker work?
All right.
There you go.
So first, I just on the first 2 pages of your handout, you have a brief explanation of what tier 1, 2, and 3 behavior supports look like. So tier 1 are those supports that support the entire school or the classroom. So that can look like at Parkside Pride tickets that students get for positive behavior. It also looks like at the classroom level, classroom management strategies like teacher versus student or clip up, clip down charts, things like that. So a little bit of data from our 2023-24 school year at Parkside. So these are percentages of our students that are currently using some of our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. So Parkside serves 46 students, so 11% of our population, on check-in, check-out, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about. 39 students and 9% of our population receive outreach skills training. Our learning center serves 35 students. Most of those students multiple times a day, so about 50 kids in and out on average, which is 8% of our population. Parkside also just implemented our camp out room, which we'll talk about as well. that serves 20 students or 5% of our population, and each of those students go about 2 times daily. And then 21 students at Parkside, or 5% of our population, are in the IPM process for behavior. And so in a population of roughly 400 students, this suggests that there are about 3 or more students in every classroom at Parkside that are in need of the tier 3 behavior interventions at this time.
How many classrooms? Parkside?
17, plus our life skills, so 18.
All right. And so because of this need, we've been working diligently to strengthen our systems at Parkside and our interventions to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all students. So we're just going to go through a couple of the ones that we're currently using. So our check-in, check-out, which is the 3rd page that you have, it's a little half sheet. Is our most utilized tier 2 intervention at this time. So teachers can, this system is implemented for students who need reminders or positive reinforcement throughout their day to meet their goal. Because they're partaking in some undesirable behaviors that are disruptive to their learning and the learning of others. So when our Parkside team is determining whether or not a student is in need of a check-in, check-out, we have teachers reach out to our Core 4 team or our Parkside RTII team with those behavioral concerns. Then we work together with parents to determine a goal for the student to work on. And I think one important thing to note with check-in, check-out is that sometimes there's multiple undesirable behaviors that students are partaking in at one time. But the important thing with check-in, check-out is to focus on one goal at a time. Once they're able to be successful with that goal and maintain that goal, then they can move on to the next one.
Yes,
So-
Joe?
How would you prioritize
The-
if you had multiple behavioral issues?
It's a team decision, but usually we come together and talk about what is the most disruptive to their learning. And then we start there. So when a student begins check in, check out, they begin their day by checking in with an adult in our learning center. That adult talks to the student about their goal and gives them a little bit of a pep talk, and then gives them a paper similar to the one that you have. On the top of the paper is their goal that's listed, and then their school schedule is broken down. So during each subject, they have the opportunity to earn a 2, a 1, or a 0. A 2 means that they are meeting their goal most of the time during that period. A 1 means some of the time, and then 0 is not at all. And it's a nice check-in for the students to have throughout their day to see how they're doing. We do ask teachers that if they put a 0, that they write a comment, and then also that they write some comments and celebrations for 2s. That way, at the end of the day, when the student comes back to the Learning Center to check out, they can receive some feedback on their day and talk about some of those trouble spots. And then,
So the teacher has this card and the student has one of these cards. Do they both judge?
the card is supposed to stay on the student's desk or with the student at all times. And then the teacher checks in with them after every time period and then circles and talks with them about how they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
just one card.
Yeah, just one card for each student. And they also take it with them to specials out on the playground. If they're able to do that, if it's an older kid that's able to do that, they take it with them everywhere they go.
And then, so then at the end of the day, they check in with you?
Yeah, so then at the end of the day, go to this one. So during the checkout process, they come back to the Learning Center, which is staffed at that time with about 2 or 3 adults so that we can make sure we're having good quality debriefs with each kiddo about their day. And if they meet their goal, which is 80% of the possible points, they receive 1 Skittle and a good job. And what can we do better to make it better next time? And they also get to move up their piece on our game board. So that is on the wall, the picture that you see up there. And each student has a little dot and they move forward. And they can earn larger prizes throughout the year, most of which are experiences like lunch with Mrs. Green is one of them, and that's our Learning Center adult, and things like that. And then, so what does all of this data from check-in, check-out mean, and why do we need it, and why do we use it? So on the next page,
So it looks like on your student packet, or portion of the packet.
it's about the next 3 pages. So I
Yeah.
gave you guys this, but an outline for the student's entire day. We put it into a Google form and then it creates pie charts like this for the specific student that you have on yours, they had about 57 entries, so over about 57 days. Yeah. And then we use it to inform our individual planning meeting process, decide when students need scheduled breaks, and when those, and it really helps us determine those patterns of behavior. For example, this student is consistently having difficulty during writing. That could be because writing is something that they need to build their stamina for. And it just helps us, it helps to inform that process.
So when we meet with parents, we'll bring back for meetings, we would sit down with you, go over this and look at this data to help inform how to support that student. So it's a really nice way to say, oh, well, they're doing well in the morning or in the afternoon, and it really helps identify where are the tough spots for that student.
And actually, the one that you are all looking at specifically, we used this data to help determine the possible need for an abbreviated day.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the first subject was doing really well consistently, recess as well. Then they had some camp out time, which we'll talk about. And then right after that, about halfway through their day, they were starting to struggle. Okay. All right.
Questions up to this point?
Okay. So then our next thing we're going to talk about, which can be used as a tier 2 intervention, is our learning center. And every elementary has a learning center, but I think that they're all used a little bit differently. So our learning center serves a variety of different purposes, including scheduled breaks for students, student regulation, so opportunities to talk things out with other students or to talk with an adult. They also manage the check-in, check-out system. They provide assistance in small groups or one-on-one with work. They serve as a separate setting for testing when needed. They also provide behavior consequences in school suspensions and detentions, things like that. Monthly, they also house our PBIS store where kids can use their tickets to buy items every month. And then you guys also have an example of our Camp Pass. So teachers can send their students to the Learning Center, or we call it camp, but I believe everywhere else it's called the Learning Center, with a Camp Pass that indicates why they're there and when they they can or should return to the classroom. Any questions about that one? And then the last intervention that we recently implemented that we wanted to talk about is our Camp Out Room. So in September and October, our team sat down and looked at the list of about 20 students that were receiving tier 1 and tier 2 supports consistently, but were still demonstrating extremely disruptive behaviors in their classroom. So we developed the Camp Out Room to help provide students with a setting that is smaller and more structured. Camp Out was created for students who struggle to stay regulated in the large group setting, are in need of frequent adult support to build their stamina for non-preferred activities and assignments, those who struggle to follow classroom directions, are consistently not accessing the instruction or completing their work, and who are in need of longer scheduled breaks to support regulation. So while in Camp Out, you can see you guys have the next paper that you have is this one up here on the screen. So while they're in Camp Out, they follow a visual schedule, which is the next paper that you have as well. To rotate through 3 different activities. So the first station is the blue triangle station is what they know it as, and it's a regulation station. So at this station, students participate in hands-on activities like building. We also have heavy work activities, like we have weighted medicine balls if they want to push that around on the ground to support regulation and focus. Then they transition to the green circle station, which is our individualized support, where they complete work in a smaller group with adult support. And so it is a shorter amount of time than they are in the classroom, but they are getting more work out of it, we've found, because they have that adult support. And then the last station they transition to is the red square table, where they complete a brain game, a puzzle, or a coloring sheet, something that's just quieter and more centering so that they're ready to return back to class. And when in the Camp Out Room, they are responsible for following their own schedule. So that's what their schedule looks like. They get their timer, they get their schedule, and they go to their first station. And this helps increase personal responsibility and supporting of building executive functioning skills, which a lot of these kiddos need. Any questions about that? Okay. So how have these interventions helped improve student behavior? So this is Parkside's data, referral data broken down by month this year. So you can see October, we hit a peak. We implemented Camp Out on November 1st. And we've seen a steady decline with the kiddos that are in our Camp Out room. So,
Could you back that one up again?
yeah,
Do you have any of this information from previous years, or is it just this year?
Well, we have historical from years back, but we just took it from this year to show is what we're doing working? Because what we had to do to create this is we had to pull from resources across the whole school. So we had to pull from instructional groups, and we sat down as a staff, and we're like, what are we gonna do? Because these are the kids that you've heard about that are severely dysregulated, throwing chair, I mean, really upset. So there's like 20 of them that were very disruptive. And so, as a staff, we sat down and say, how are we gonna support you? Well, we gotta give somewhere, so we had to pull from our reading supports and other supports to create this room. And then we just met at our core review meetings and said, how's it working? Every group of teachers, is this worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is it helping? And so far, every team, we have one more team to meet with, but everybody's been very supportive of it.
yeah. And I will say that just when I've looked at our past year's data, usually we see another dramatic increase in January after the new year. And this year we did not.
Yeah.
So that's the one.
That's what I was curious
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Does October always look like that? Does November also always look like that? Like, how does it actually compare? So.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Okay.
Gary?
So the kids that are get, I don't know, does this apply to all the kids in the classrooms?
What, Camp Out? Or just
No.
the tier 2 stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, usually any student is available to do it, but we meet with parents. This is usually after we've come together and sat with families and looked at data to implement these. So every parent every student that's in an intervention, we've met with the parents and they're helping us together. So it's available to everybody, but not everybody needs it.
Mhm. And usually it's after tier 1 supports
Yeah.
are not effective. So it's for the percentage of students that tier 1 supports do not work for.
So my next question would be students that come out of stepping stones, how many of them don't move from tier 1 to tier 2?
Well, stepping stones would be a tier.
Tier
3.
7.
Yeah.
They've all gone through tier
Right.
1, tier 2, tier 3, yes.
And so as they come out,
Yeah, so I'm after stepping stones, they go
Right.
back to the classroom.
when
Right.
they come out of stepping stones, they usually they don't just like, we throw them to the wolves and they're,
Right.
you know, in with everybody with just tier 1 supports. They come with their behavior plans, check in, check out, all of those supports. The Camp Out might be one of the.
Very
supports.
very similar supports to what you're seeing there. They kind of work their way back in. Go ahead, Robbie.
They will be they would likely be the kids
Yeah.
that do those.
Yeah, for our stepping stones kids, they come into a classroom short times with an assistant, then add more time with the assistant, pull them out with an assistant, and then work their behavior plans with the teacher before they go full-time anywhere. And they would go with all the supports that they've got, that they've learned, that they've put in place.
Mhm.
And then they come back to their home schools, and the students that we have received from Stepping Stones have the tools that they've learned, and we have to support them somewhat, but it's definitely not to the level that we've had to in the past.
But they'll probably still be at
Yeah.
least a tier 2.
Oh, yeah.
They do check in, check out, because and they're asking for it. Like they know that they need to talk to somebody because, Robbie upset me at recess, right? He got the ball before or whatever it is, right? And so, but that's the key is they've learned and they're able to apply the skills that they've taught them.
All of these kids are relationship kids, and that's the
Yeah.
first place with the check and check out that they're gonna do when they go wherever in school they go back.
Right.
So I was just trying to get some sense of the integration of stepping stones with this model. And I think I've heard that we could use a few more room in our stepping stones, which would imply that some of the students you're dealing with here could benefit from a stepping stones environment. Am I getting that wrong?
Possibly,
Possibly,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, but,
but when possibly, they
Right.
don't all need a stepping stone.
right,
We also have quite a few kids, I think I can list two that have come back from stepping stones and have all of these interventions, but are relatively successful with the tier twos and tier threes. When they previously, before stepping stones, were not.
yeah, and this kind of mirrors what we do in reading and math, is we give them the support, right? And some of them don't get to the end where they need to go to a stepping stone. They're like, oh, I've got it figured out, and then they go back. I mean, we've had how many? Yeah, how many kids did we, yeah, so. go ahead.
So this is just, again, the data, how have these interventions helped improve student behavior? So specific to Camp Out, since opening Camp Out room, 80% of our students receiving this intervention have decreased in number of referrals. And also we've had 2 students fully transition back to the classroom. They no longer need that special break room. They asked us and they came to us and said, I think I'm ready to go back to the classroom and do what I'm supposed to be doing. And they have fully transitioned back.
Thank you.
Principal Lewis,
Yes,
this is Member Sable. I just have a question. I think it's wonderful to see programs like that that help kids with their behavior so that they can learn and also not disrupt others. I'm just kind of curious about, let's see, of our 46 students, check in, check out, 34% of them have shown an upward trend. What about the ones that have not?
so those are students that we continue to meet with. We come up with different levels of support, so we just, so like a behavior support plan, or we
Right.
FBA, or.
Yeah, so then usually when they're in check out and it's not successful, and sometimes also when it is, we meet for an individual planning meeting and we'll move towards either a functional behavior assessment to really narrow in down on the behavior. Sometimes we just change the goal. For some of the kiddos that are not in that 73%, their goal was too broad. It wasn't a starting place because we have to ensure that the student feels successful so that they get the buy-in as well. And so we've had a handful, I would say 4 to 5 students that we've had to change goals for so far this year. And then they start to take off once they have something that they can achieve.
Okay, so there's sort of a plan B, sort of a safety net for those that are not going along with this program.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So can I assume all of these kids are on IEPs already or just some?
No.
Most of
Most of them are not.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
well, that was a loud no.
Oh, that was the peanut gallery, so. Go ahead.
And check in, check out is really a tier 2 intervention. And typically we don't, when we move towards evaluation for special education, then we're getting into tier 3 area, having to look at individualized kids and their specific needs. And check in, check out meets those specific needs, but it also as an intervention works for a small group of students, about that 11 to 15%, instead of having to move to those even more individualized supports.
Okay, and then do I understand correctly that this was implemented just in the time for the data that you provided in this time period, or has this been going long before that?
It was implemented on November 1st.
Camp
Camp
out,
out was.
just the camp out portion.
Check in, check out has been going on
Yeah,
longer.
everything else, the other supports, the check in, check out, the camp, all those others, we've been doing that for years.
Okay. And then maybe you're already getting to this, and if you are, I'll just be quiet, but has it required an increase of staff to?
Yeah, that's what I explained is we had to operate within our current resources. So we had to meet as teachers and we said, hey, what are we gonna do? We pulled a couple staff members and we're still, like I said, Ms. Worthington is still working on building the system. I mean, we literally just came up with it in November. Yeah,
Thank you. I think that looks great. I really, really appreciate this. Thank you.
yeah, you bet.
All right, and that's about it. The last thing I was just gonna say is that we met with teachers and all of our teachers that we've met with so far feel like that it has decreased for the students that are going into the camp out room or receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, they feel that behavior has decreased and they're able to attend more in the classroom when they're there. And that's it. Any questions? Any other questions?
Excellent. Thank you guys for putting all your thinking caps on and coming up with solutions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Me again, introducing plan course statements. A couple of our teachers were not able to come tonight to present to you. So Michelle and Alicia are gonna do that. We're gonna start with Christina Kuykendall, who's gonna talk about the climate science class. Couple of these classes tonight are not new classes at Grants Pass High School, but they're revamped high schools, and so we wanted to bring them forward so you know how the class is being redesigned. You'll see on your action items tonight that all plan course statements have been put as action items from last board meeting, which we hadn't gone to Parent Advisory Council yet. I will tell you on these 4 classes that are coming forward to you today from Parent Advisory, and actually all of them, we've had really positive input of our parents on Parent Advisory Council. We actually, based on some feedback they gave to the musical theater class, there was a little bit of a refinement in the plan course statement. Asked some really good questions. Ultimately, they support them all. There were a few people who abstained from votes on various classes, but overall, the parents recommended all of the classes that are on your action items tonight to go forward as courses offered at Grants Pass High School. We'll start with climate science though, and Mrs. Kuykendall.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it. I know that when I've been talking, I've shared time with Michelle Denton on this, and I think it's really cool, and I'm really glad to be here and represent for this. So the purpose of this climate science course is it's an interdisciplinary elective course in order to explore climate science, so climate trends historically, what's happening now, as well as providing students an opportunity to have a high interest course that expands upon our science knowledge. We have a variety of classes currently that are more heavily biology based and life based, and so we wanted to provide another option class that allows students to see more of what science and our discipline has to offer students through climate science. So the idea is that they are taking the time to make themselves literate on a variety of science topics and in regards of history of the climate, how changing climate affects different biomes and us and terrestrial and aquatic life and geological effects and things like that, as well as teaching them how to research, find credible sources, and be able to make claims about what's happening or what has happened, be able to support their thoughts, find credible sources, and then also propose solutions to what we may be experiencing now based on evidence that they find and research that they conduct in relation to climate. And so we're trying to create a high interest for course for students as an alternate elective to what's already provided for students.
I will add that currently our freshmen either take physical world or chemistry, depending on their math level. Their second year is biology, and then their third year of science is their choice. And so currently, a majority of the selectives, as we would call them, are biology based. And so this gives kids an alternative option for something potentially outside of biology that might be of interest to them.
You mentioned potential solutions to what?
So they're going to research kind of previous trends and then any current trends that are happening with the climate, and then propose any solution based on evidence they find, solutions to the changing climate that we're currently seeing based on hard data. And then propose any solutions like what can be done either on an individual scale or like large scale of like that might take several years to teach kids to like dream big, but also to connect it to what they can do in their everyday life of like, what can we do here in Grants Pass, Oregon, or what could we do as a nation like down the road to research and just propose solutions based on the data they find on what current trends we're seeing and have seen in the past based on like how climate fluctuates and works.
Thank you.
I just wondered how many students do you think, guesstimate that will want to sign up for this?
At least enough for one class, if not more. So the purpose is to get as many interested as possible, because not every student is necessarily interested in every single science class we have to offer. So the idea is that we're wanting to create a high interest. So ideally getting up to 3 classes worth, so as much as 60 students a semester, because this is only a semester course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see this as a real potential project-based course. Is there any projects involved in this where they may create or propose a project that might be adopted by the school or?
And there's
something like
totally
that?
room for that. When we were designing the course and thinking about options, was creating a lot of like research project based where students are conducting their own research. They're looking into this themselves, creating posters and ideas. And then at the end, like culminating in a large scale project on their own of when they propose a solution, they can either make like a PDA announcement, they can make a poster, a pamphlet, something of that scale, and it could totally expand towards like they make their own small scale project or visualize it going to that point. There's a lot of growth.
I guess what I'm getting at, I shouldn't be prescribing, but I can see it turning into a project base where they actually would come in front of the board and propose a school-wide project that might have an impact on
And that's
climate
totally,
issues.
and there's total room for that. That's kind of what the whole point is. Like, if they're passionate enough about their project, their final project, and feel that they could really make that happen, then they could go through and do that and get the support behind them through either myself or another teacher, whoever teaching the course, to provide that support to where they could come here. When that happens, that's to be determined, but there is total room for that kind of thing where they could really drive to make a solution like that.
Michelle, this is Member Sable online. You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And I apologize if you already said it and I missed it, but does some of this course cover climate change effect on fire regimes, particularly being here in Southern Oregon, where we are the most fire prone part of the state? You guys discuss wildfire?
It would be touched a lot under the terrestrial ecosystems, because we are very much terrestrial ecosystems. So that would something that would be touched there. And then we also, one of the units is about human displacement. And so that would also be touched there as well, because you're right, we are heavily affected by those things, and it does influence how we live our lives and how the ecosystems around us adapt as well.
Okay, and then my second question is just a curiosity: is there a field trip component to this, to get out in the woods or out in natural resources?
There's the room for that, to connect with those resources. We haven't necessarily gone there yet, but there is that room for that. And that's part of the developing this course is getting connections with people with like weather stations around us or the fire department and, total brain fart, sorry. With just the local, communities to get connected with what's going on around with us as well, to those scales.
Okay, yeah, I was just, if it's something that is of interest to develop, there could be potential partnership with the Department of Forestry or state parks locally, where students could actually get out and after they've done some, classroom work and see and talk about with a natural resource expert on what's going on in Southern Oregon due to climate change, particularly with things like forestry management and, you know, like what's going on with our ponderosas in Southern Oregon. So anyway, just a thought.
So Nathan, Michelle Denton, who helped Christina with this, her husband used to work for ODF, and so there's already that connection there, and he has
Awesome.
resources. And so Michelle's a perfect pathway to be able to make that community connection piece.
Very cool. Thank you.
Sounds like Nathan's volunteering also.
Well, listen, we've got a lot of state parks in Southern Oregon and we deal with this issue all the time. It's definitely natural resource management. So we're open to those discussions too, if you're interested.
Absolutely. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Christina?
Yeah, Christina, thank you for presenting. I'm curious, what is TUVA? It says online data resources such as TUVA.
Oh,
At the
I
bottom
believe
of
it's a resource that we have access to through the library. And so like part of the development of this and teaching students how to do their own research and find credible sources is to connect with our librarians because they have a wealth of options and ability and resources for conducting research, finding credible sources. And so using those sites available to us from the library so the students can find articles, research, like other conducted research and data that would be current and relevant, and just making, again, more connections with the school and the community for those kinds of things.
Okay, yeah, just curious, never had heard of that. And then kind of big question, big thought. I hear phrases like climate change, and then we used to hear global warming, and all of a sudden I go, we are going to be rooted in hard science with a
Yes.
course like this. That's all I want to just.
Yes, it would
Not a
be
Political
fully
class in any way.
correct.
It's not going to dive off into the
Correct.
weeds.
The purpose is to like have students find hard, credible data that has been done through research and like research done by scientists. So it would be all factual information, using historical trends as well as what we're seeing and whatnot. It would be completely just, it's fully rooted in science and data.
Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Awesome. Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. You did great. You want to go next and I'll follow with the last two? Okay.
Okay, so Julia Cuppy cannot be here with us tonight, but I'm going to talk a little bit about musical theater. So just a brief outline. So Julia has proposed a new course called musical theater. And it has kind of two focuses, one being the history of musical theater in America. And then also the practice and the production of putting together a performance piece. So focusing on things like vocal, dance, audition techniques, understanding the world of professional theater, Broadway, off-Broadway, local theater, understanding musical comedies, musical dramas, a song and a lyric analysis, creating their own what is called a jukebox musical. If you don't know what that is, if I take songs just from the Beatles and then I create a new story using Beatles songs or whatever artist I want that to be, but I create a brand new story based on those songs. Was that?
Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia. Absolutely. There's a bunch. And then students have the opportunity to prepare and perform as both a soloist and a group. It culminates at the end, it is a semester-long course, and it culminates at the end with an off-campus performance of some sort.
And what exactly is an off-campus?
So meaning it wouldn't happen at our Performing Arts Center. I believe it's the.
Yeah.
No, I think she already talked about that, using the Hive downtown, like there's a connection there. So meaning the performance is not at our Performing Arts Center. It would take place, does the Hive sound right? The Hive, which is downtown,
Okay.
the old JCPenney, Golden Rule.
Just like-
I'm dating right, it's the old Golden Rule, I'll date myself, the old Golden Rule area, yeah. That's pretty brief. Can I answer any questions about that? I can do it.
Do Les Mis music all.
I will do it. for today.
We'll put in the request, Joe. We'll put in the request. Important that.
Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Okay, so I'll take the next two. First I'll talk about military science. This is a course, again, that has always been taught. In the past, it's been taught by military personnel, specifically recruiters from the Army. This past year, before the start of the school year, the Army pulled their funding for that, and so the recruiters were no longer able to come in and teach this military science course. We are very fortunate to have Casey Coulter on staff, who is in the Army National Guard, was a ROTC student at SOU. He's one of our health and PE teachers, and so when he found out the military had pulled funding to be able to teach this course, he came in and was like, I'll do it. This would be like super cool, fun stuff to be able to do. So we're actually excited to be able to have a teacher teach the course. I feel like we've gone through several different, Keith can probably attest to this, and Ryan, I don't know how many recruiters we've gone through that were teaching military science. So excited to have someone on staff with military experience, someone who used the ROTC program to put themselves through college to become a teacher, and is still serving, is passionate about what he does in the service to his country. So the focus on the backside, so we talk about career pathways a lot. We talk about college and career readiness. We have a population of students who are going to make military service their career. And so to be able to provide them with an introduction to what military is, the different branches of service, what our history has looked like with regards to the military, get into some specifics. What are the different rank and structures? Where do you start? Where can you end? What does that look like for your future? General military equipment and vehicles. Casey will even get into basic military operations. He's going to do a land navigation unit where the kids will actually go out into the wilderness somewhere and learn how to navigate their path and start at this point and end at this point. So he'll teach them the use of mapping and compass and all that good stuff. They will go over combat lifesaver skills. So what are some things that could potentially happen during combat? What are your choices as far as an occupation in the military? Because it is wide and vast as far as what you can do. So it's really for those kids who are interested in military as a career, it gives them an introduction to all things military. They will do, I don't want to say basic training type stuff. They will do physical activity because that is part of the military and your service is being able to be physically active. So he'll run them through drills and use some of our gym space to be able to do that. So again, super excited to have a classroom trained teacher be able to offer this, and someone who has spent all of his young adult life as part of the military. He was stationed in Poland for a little bit. In fact, we interviewed him from Poland when we hired him as our health and PE teacher. So that's a little bit about military science. Joe.
There's a physical component to this. Is there any way for this to fulfill part of the physical education requirements?
There's not enough of the class that it would warrant to be able to offer like a 0.5 credit for PE, but the kids will know going in, you know, there's a physical component in the military. So we just want to give you a taste of what that might look like.
Too bad.
Is Casey the one that is going to do the new class on the Pillar Angels Civil War?
No, that's in the middle school, right? Yeah. I will also say that Casey still has some pretty strong connections over at SOU with their ROTC individual. So I know he's going to connect with them and try and create a partnership with SOU and what they offer there as well.
Would be exciting also.
Yeah, checked.
So it sounds really exciting. This is considered a science class though?
No, it's actually just an elective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So kids need, yeah, we call it military science. That's what it's always been called. So
Okay.
I don't know where that name came from, to be honest, but yeah, so they get elective credit and they need elective credits to graduate. So
Cool. was just reading the outline and I thought, where does the science?
Where does the science fit in? Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Gary.
Do we know if we have any interest in actually offering, what's it called, junior ROTC here?
That's been asked.
Yeah.
By a couple of people recently. And my recollection goes back to when Jan Taylor was the secondary director. And we were exploring that. It's about resources that the, folks who would run the junior ROTC program would have. I'm not even sure who we would reach out to anymore, but we had explored that at one point in time as a possibility. Like figure out who to contact, we could look at that again, but there were some barriers last time I remember.
What branch is Casey?
He's Army National Guard.
So in the interest of equity, I'm thinking you need some Air Force.
First couple of Air Force.
Yeah.
Where are you guys at? Yeah. Any other questions about military science? Cool, okay. The last one I'll talk about is Grad Connections. This is also this one is really a redesign of what we used to call Bridges Tracking, which was in a sense, our credit recovery class. It was not necessarily a class, it was a period where kids could work on their credit recovery through Edgenuity. In working with Christopher, we talked a lot about how, you know, a kid as a freshman is very different than the kid who's a junior or senior. They have a different outlook on life. They have a different focus. They have different goals. And to have them sit in front of a computer and try and work through Edge to make up credits that, you know, they didn't get done as a freshman, is hard. And I don't want to say it's boring, but it can be boring. And so we worked together to create a class that would give kids some hope, help them build some skills because they are getting ready to jump out into the real world, as well as do the credit recovery piece. So we're calling it Grad Connections. Christopher is actually teaching lessons on a regular basis, which is why we're now offering credit for this course. And it's lessons around goal setting. It's lessons around building relationships, advocating, being able to communicate specifically with adults as they are navigating this credit recovery process. Talking about employability habits, working with our college and career center on building resumes, finishing their personalized learning. Do you need a job? Let's work on maybe some interview skills. Christopher's able to have a lot of one-on-one conversations with kids as well after these lessons. So they're doing lessons on a weekly basis. And then the lessons happen during the class period, maybe for a portion of it, and then they take time and they work on their credit recovery. So they're getting two components of, hey, let me do some things that I can utilize in my real life. I'm going to figure out hopefully what I want to do when I leave high school, because some of them are really close, but I'm also working on retrieving these credits that I missed out on. So they're able to earn credit by learning some skills, but also retrieve credit by working in Edgenuity. And so Christopher's doing a phenomenal job already. He's already had kids completing classes. He's having some really meaningful conversations with kids. He's teaching them some skills. We're working on things with them that are going to impact their life when they leave Grants Pass High School, with the ultimate goal of obviously getting them to graduate. But he's also providing belief and hope in them, which for some of those kids, they may not have felt in a while. And so I'm really excited about what he's doing with this course, and the hope he's giving the kids and the push that he's giving them to get across the line. So that is Grad Connections.
GP Flex isn't involved in this at all.
No.
Well, it sounds like a course that's really designed to help a significant portion of our student body with a teacher whose skills are tailor-made for this course.
Hope is good. I think it's a car, apartment, and a job.
That's what I know.
So you have a resource there.
Yeah.
Mike has been busy writing his speech about his graduate.
It's pre-type, thank you very much.
3 minutes.
2 minutes, 42 seconds on the clock.
Any other questions I can answer about Grad Connections?
I just want to say, parent advisory meeting, it was really neat to see that it's about each student.
Yeah.
And finding hope in them, but also making sure that they are still GP.
Awesome, cool.
Thank you.
All right, 4.3.
Graduation rates. If you could scroll down for me to the other graph first, so, yeah, thank you. Graduation rates became public, like January 22nd. I believe Tim sent you data in a different format with the actual numbers of cohort size. A couple of years ago, I was asked to put our graduation data in graph format, and so that is what you are seeing tonight. So graduation rate, this all reflects on the class of 2023, students who graduated last year. We go through a process, kids can earn their diploma all the way up till August 31st for that cohort year. Then there's data work that's done at the various district and state levels to then release the finalized graduation rate. That's the timeline delay of how it works. Kids count in the cohort. If they start 9th grade I think this was the 1920 school year, 18-19 cohort year. That's the cohort they're in, definition there. A couple of years ago, we disaggregated the data for Gladiola and GP Flex, and that's why you see a couple of different things on our bar graph. What I want to draw your attention to and really speak to tonight is the green line, that is Grants Pass School District as a whole, and the purple line, which is the state grad rate. So on our 4-year graduation rate, we've taken a little bit of a dip from the year prior. We are below the state average. There's lots of reasons for that. And tonight we're going to have the 3 high school principals tell you a little bit about this group of kids and some of the obstacles that they faced. But I think if we scroll up and look at the 4-year completion rate, you start to see the data change. We offer a GED in District 7, and we had a number of students in that 4-year completer rate that finished with their GED. So we were right on par with the state average related to completion. So graduation rate measures regular high school diplomas, and then completion rate adds the GED to it. But even better data, if you go down to the 5-year, what we have found for us is starting with the 4-year graduation rate, we're finding a lot of success for students finishing in that 5th year. It's taking our kids a little bit longer. So again, the green line is Grants Pass School District. And I really have always focused on that line because I believe we do this work all together. You will find kids that transfer between Gladiola to GP Flex, to Grants Pass High School, to GED. We're trying to find the best way to serve them as a district. And so really proud of our ability to get kids a regular high school diploma, pretty close to the state average in terms of graduation rate and above that 80% mark. Our goal is above 90% in 5 years, and we're on trend to do that. And then if you scroll down to the last graph, really the one that I think speaks volumes to all that we offer. We've had a lot of success with our GED program. It's a good fit for a number of kids. Our completion rate in 5 years is above the state average, and really gives kids a lot of hope. I think that number is 88.03%. So 88% of that cohort finishing high school with something that's going to help them move into post-secondary. Our goal is a regular diploma. but for some kids, the GED just ends up being the right fit. What I've asked the three principals to do tonight, because in past years, board has kind of wanted to understand about the kids who didn't complete. Why? What are some of the obstacles in helping better understand that? So we're gonna start with GP Flex and then go to, did I say Grants Pass High School first?
We worked out our own.
Oh, they worked out. I guess Michelle's going.
Had a
PLC meeting earlier?
Yeah, we did. We had a PLC meeting.
They're gonna share with you a little bit of what has happened with the kids.
Okay, so in looking through some of our kiddos who didn't finish, there's a variety of reasons. Things from houselessness, at our age, kids that are either living on their own, who aren't with their families anymore. Folks that are living in cars, tents, hotels, sometimes our kids couch surf from friend's house to friend's house. We have a lot of families that move a lot and not by the kid's choice, but their parent or guardian needs to go here, go there, go here, whether it's for work or other reasons. And sometimes, unfortunately, they just don't get reconnected with school wherever they end up. Our kids are struggling with anxiety, depression, mental illnesses. And for them, school sometimes is just a little too much. So it's hopefully finding them the help and the resources that they need. But sometimes they disconnect in a way that we can't reach out to them. At our age level, kids that leave home because they don't want to be involved in their family dynamic anymore. And so they need to go someplace else. And then those are the kids that are couch surfing or potentially just don't make it back to school. We do have teens that are getting pregnant and having children. And so sometimes that impacts. We try really hard to work for those kids that GED is probably the best option, but there is a certain skill set they have to get to that Mike could address better. And sometimes they just don't have the skills to be able to do our GED program, even though we know that's what's best for them. Parents who are uninvolved with their child's life and their education. And so the kids don't see the value in what might come next and coming to school. So the reasons are vast as to why kids don't finish, but those are some of the barriers. And while we try our best to throw every kind of resource we can at the kiddos and their families, sometimes as much as it hurts, it's not enough. So some things that we're doing at Grants Pass High School to foster hope and help our kids. We started a new program called TAPS. It's called Transition, Achievement, and Positive Supports. We really focused it around what we call our red zone kids. So kids that have poor attendance, struggled with behaviors, haven't passed potentially a lot of classes. We pull data from middle school and we identify those kids. These kids are working on social emotional skills. How do I function as a person in a classroom that's potentially got 30 people in it and it's super overwhelming for me? How can Keith and I have a conversation and help it stay civil, even though we might disagree? So all of these social emotional skills. Jen Darland, who does that class, is phenomenal. We really haven't had a resource for our red zone kids. We had 38 kids in our TAP 9, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is our highest risk, highest behavior kids. And so of those 38, 15 of them ended up on track to graduate. And so knowing that population of kids, that is a phenomenal number of kids who probably wouldn't be on track if it wasn't for her in that program. We have Reach for Success, which is our yellow zone students. So Sarah is working with them on SEL skills, but also academic skills. We're focusing on that Wicker component of AVID, writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading, and giving them some confidence and some skills to be successful. Grad Connections, our new program with Christopher, is a part of that. We have an attendance supervisor who reaches out to kids that are absent on a regular basis. We have Amy Jackson, who really targets our non-attenders, tries to get them reconnected, works with the families on how can we get your kiddo to school. Our ninth grade success program and the mentors who meet with our yellow zone kids and connect with them and provide them with supports and help them overcome barriers. Our counselors once a month are pulling on-track data and targeting kids who are struggling and not passing as many classes as they should be, and meeting with them and what can we do to help you? What's the struggle? And then we get a multi-weekly email about kids who are missing consecutive days. So in fact, we just met this morning to talk about Michelle's gonna call kids at this time, the counselors are gonna call kids at this missed date to try and catch those kids before they hit that 10-day mark and potentially disappear from us. So those are some things we're doing to help bump that graduation rate.
Next.
I have a question. Member Sable,
Yes.
going back to what we're going through the long list of all the different reasons why students struggle, and it's all true, the anxiety and maybe, issues at home or whatever it is. Do we feel like we have a higher percentage of those kids in the Grants Pass district versus, Medford, Ashland, Eagle Point? Do we have any data on that? Do we think we have more of those kids that struggle than other districts do?
I think every community has that population of students. I couldn't speak to their resources and how they allocate them or how they engage families or students differently. I think, comparing resources to resources within the community, and but they all have the same struggles, same kinds of kids.
Sure. Yeah,
Josephine County has fewer community resources than Jackson County does.
So it's been a number of years.
That's what I was interested in hearing, because everything that was listed off are human condition type things that are going to occur anywhere. But I was curious if we had data as to why those conditions would affect our graduation rates more than other districts in Southern Oregon. And then I actually had another question.
Can I address one of your questions? So it's been
Yeah.
a number of years, but a local doctor came and spoke to the board and mentioned that Josephine County had the highest number of teenage pregnancies in the state, and that Oregon had one of the highest percentages in the 50 states. So we were below average or above average in those numbers at that point. I don't know if there has been any improvement or not since that time.
That's interesting. That would be interesting to dig more into that kind of data, speaking for myself. As far as my understanding is, teenage pregnancy has decreased nationwide, but of course it's always going to be community dependent. But yeah, thank you for that. That's interesting. So my question, if I heard correctly, that in the 5th year, because of GED completion, we're making up for some of the non-graduation in 4 years, if I heard that correctly. Why do we think that is? Why are we not getting it done in 4 years for lots of students, but then they're completing it in the 5th with the GED? Do we have some theories on that or data on that?
I have theories on it. I think you've got a state of Oregon that continues to add more and more things for students to have to accomplish to graduate, while not giving them additional supports to help them to graduate. And you're seeing that it takes 5 years for many students to accomplish the state mandated requirements. It's a little bit frustrating. They only add, they never take away. And when they did take away the essential skills, people freaked out. Right? But it is daunting for our students to get through 4 years with the supports that they have at home and make it in 4 years. They're just, a lot of our students do not have the supports that would allow them to be successful in the 4 years. Now, that's not every student, of course, we do graduate students in 4 years, but we're talking about, we've got it. More than a handful and a significant amount of students that just need the 5th year.
Mhm.
And that is a trend that is growing across the state of Oregon. That is not unique to D7.
Sure.
You can see that across the board. You
That's-
really, for some of our families, our students would have to have a perfect 4 years to get through in 4 years. And that just doesn't exist with the homes they go home to. So.
That's really interesting, Tim. I would love to learn more about that and see if there's. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we're doing everything we can internally to try to overcome that. But what it sounds like is we're looking at demographics and external factors is what I'm hearing. That's causing that dynamic.
Yeah, and we've been talking about support for students who are getting close to dropping out since the retreat back in August. We have been working on it, and by we, that's Trish, Danny, Michelle, Mike, and Keith, and I. We've been looking at the data, we've been talking about how we go about this. And it's tricky, and we just, students will join our district and they're on paper or by birth a junior and on paper have no credits, and we're like, okay.
Right.
We don't know where the best fit is, we don't know how to support that student and their goals.
It's a 6 years.
Well, I think this is really
Or
good
7.
information and discussion as we're gearing up to revamp our strategic planning.
Yep.
I mean, it's good to be talking through this stuff.
Yes, it is.
So the data walk at Lincoln Elementary a month or two ago, it was on several charts where we've got 85% are making it and 15% are not, whether it was grades or absenteeism, and you look closer and that 15% represents the homeless and foster kid population. So that is a major factor in some of these figures.
Yes, and continues to be.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe.
Question, just has to do with data. Are we able to compare our graduation rate with other school districts?
Yeah.
Where do we, that would be the information. Where do we sit with those?
I can send it to you.
Okay.
I'm gonna share it with you.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't-
Look at that.
Throw my question.
Like numbers. If you're completed.
Gary, do you have a question?
Not always, it would be here forever.
So I guess one way to reframe some of the questions I heard is we have some things unique here to Josephine County. But we're trying to compare data. We have statewide data. Can we actually use that data? Is it an apples to apples comparison? That's partially, I think, Nathan's question. Can we compare to Medford or Ashland or Roseburg or Salem Kaiser? And if we can't, because they're not apples to apples, we kind of need to know that. We need to quit looking at that part.
Yeah, yes, and thank you. Yes, because we obviously have to put ourselves into context of what we're dealing with. And if it's not helpful to have comparisons with other districts, then it's important to have that discussion and make that clear to everybody. based on data. So,
Okay, so some of what I'm gonna talk about tonight overlaps with what Michelle and Mike are gonna talk about, because obviously, we're dealing with a lot of the same kids that kind of come and go. And some of what I'm gonna talk about is more anecdotal, just based on my experience of being at the high school for 10 years and now being at GP Flex for 2. But I first off want to thank you. I'm very honored that you've entrusted me to serve the families of Grants Pass as the principal of GP Flex. That means a lot. I also appreciate you guys being there for the celebration of our grand opening just, a few hours ago. And it being, pretty cool event. We've had a lot of success at GP Flex, and we got to hear from a couple of our success stories with Juliana and Jonathan being able to, speak to the community today. Our graduation rate has been over 90% the last 2 years. But, having said that, there's still some students that struggle to cross the finish line in GP Flex, just like there are in other programs in our district and every, community across the state and across the nation. And so when we ask the question, well, why not? Why is it that kids don't finish? And, like Michelle talked about, we have health and family situations. We have just a general apathy towards school, childhood or current trauma, criminal activity, drug use, and barriers of poverty, which is a major factor in Josephine County. And over my 12 years in administration in this district, I have tragically heard and seen every one of these stories multiple times over the years. I've had students tell me about everything in their lives, from sexual abuse to mental illness and depression to homelessness and addiction, to a student describing the fact that she had been sex trafficked in the past. These are the kids in our community, and these aren't excuses, but they're realities that we as a district and as leaders and staff need to be aware of so that we can address them and better serve our students. We can't fix the student situation outside of school. We can't control that, but we can and must be that stable, caring adult that they can count on. And, I can speak I've worked with everybody in this room for a long time, and I can tell you that we take it personally when a student doesn't finish. And we do everything we can to help every single student to stay engaged. And we are relentless in our pursuit of students that may be ready to drop out or that may have already dropped out. We work hard to connect them to the program that's going to best help them to be successful. Whenever a student enrolls in GP Flex, I meet with them and I meet with their parents. And we go over an enrollment contract. And that enrollment contract allows me to let them know what the expectations are, but also creates an opportunity for connection. And we lay out the individual plan for that student. And we can also talk about whether or not GP Flex really is the best fit for them. We have kids that will use GP Flex as a bridge to Gladiola. In fact, I've got a few students that they told me that, their ultimate goal is they want to get to Gladiola. And I said, well, I'm not the principal of Gladiola, but I have some pull with the principal of Gladiola.
We saw you stars together.
And so if you want to go to Gladiola, there's a lot of kids in line. If I'm going to go to the principal and advocate for you, you've got to make a case. And so I've got some kids that are staying engaged and they're working really hard at GP Flex because they want to make a case to get to Gladiola. And they know that the only way I can advocate for them is if they make that case themselves. We also have some students that want to get back to Grants Pass High School or North Middle School or South. Some kids use it as a bridge to GED. I had one student this year that really struggled in Flex. In fact, he was a 10-day drop, got connected with he and his parents, got him connected to our GED program. He finished in 4 weeks. He was just not, GP Flex wasn't the right program for him. GED was. He is now a completer. Of our 180 students, 38 of them are students that were in danger of dropping out. Another 25 were either going to leave D7 or had left D7 and have come back so that we can serve them. That's a third of our student population that our district would not be serving or might have dropped out entirely, but for GP Flex. Currently, we're working to build systems that will help us more broadly to address students that are at risk of dropping out, or to reach out to students that have already dropped out in order to help them reconnect, be successful, and ultimately cross that graduation or GED finish line. And our new campus, which again, thank you for saying yes to that, is going to be a major asset to that. Just the conversations I've had with parents, the numbers of kids that are already showing up to get help, the fact that I can now leverage kids with, hey, you want to stay in GP Flex? I need you here every day. And then they're showing up and doing the work. So any student that doesn't graduate or earn a GED, that's not okay. But I am very proud of the efforts of this district to reach and reconnect with as many students in our community as possible and help them to remove barriers to their success and graduation. So thank you very much.
And Gladiola.
All right, if you want to get a kid across the finish line, you get them in a room with Keith and I, we could sell them. That's why we joke used car salesman, because a lot of our kids don't really understand the inherent value of education, but between the two of us in an office and a kid, we can sell them on just about anything. And so it's a power that we honor. And anyways, so it's tie-dye Tuesday at Gladiola, so I'll just put that out there for everyone too. Why is this guy wearing this shirt? So thanks for providing us with an opportunity to share some of the kind of trials and tribulations we go through on a daily basis and the interventions and teamwork to try to support, forward progress for these kiddos. To piggyback on what Principal Napier and Jaroslav said, we see some of the toughest situations possible that our families have to navigate. We weekly, multiple times a week, make DHS phone calls, work with probation officers, kids in trauma, kids that need medical help. We had a medical emergency last night in our Bridges PM program. Ambulance showed up. Just withdrawals, fentanyl addictions, mental health crises. We're on the front lines, all of us in schools. Our schools are the front lines in this community of supporting the next generation, the health of our community. It's not really a joke, but you see in the newspaper trying to help support Riverside Park, clearing out Riverside Park. If we do our jobs well, it's a 5 to 10 year plan. That's how we help clear out Riverside Park. It's an investment. So we can take care of kids, present them mental health support, sobriety, and opportunities for the future, a car, an apartment, and a nice job, then that's how you clear out Riverside Park. That's my opinion. May not be the opinion of others, but if you're familiar with a little lesson here, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, education or self-actualization is actually the 5th out of 5 tiers. The previous 4 tiers need to be addressed in order for students to work on that 5th tier of education. Basically, a student doesn't give a rat's tuchus about slope-intercept form in math or the causes of World War II in history class if they don't have access to safety, to shelter, or to food. Briefly, tier 1 is basic physiological needs: water, food, clothing, shelter. We work to provide supports for that. Tier 2 involves the need to feel safe. Tier 3 is a sense of being cared about and a sense of belonging. Tier 4 is self-esteem, which is a sense of self-respect, being recognized, feeling a sense of personal empowerment. And only then, after those 4 are met, can we build a tier 5, which is supporting the student's desire to self-actualize, learn, grow, and create a healthy, happy life for themselves. Not just us planning a future for them, but them buying into that future and having the motivation to walk forward with us towards that goal. Gladiola is specifically and intentionally designed to address each of these 5 tiers so we can build and maximize the student's potential. The staff have all been trained on adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed practices, creating safe, welcoming environments, and creating trusting relationships, and in creating a community of care and belonging. Our Youth Truth results, which we rely on heavily for that qualitative feedback on how we're doing in our community, are not only some of the highest in the state for a sense of belonging and community, but are near the top of schools in the nation. So our little school here in Grants Pass does really darn well on creating that. And you've experienced that a few weeks ago. This equates to not only a sense of belonging and hope, but has shown a marked increase in student achievement, graduation and completion rates, and a significant reduction in suspensions and expulsions. Research supports that students that have experienced trauma thrive in environments that are balanced with caring and supported adults with strong, clear expectations. So we have that balance of caring and support with clear, high expectations. Our kind of staff motto at Gladiola is we keep the bar high and we support students over it. We don't lower the bar to get them over it. We keep the high, the rigor high, and then we provide supports to get them over that. To translate that to data, when comparing our other regional alternative education schools, Southern Oregon Success Academy in Three Rivers had a 52.4% 5th-year completion rate. Our bread and butter is 5-year completion. A lot of times we'll get students that are so far behind in credits, we can't get them across in 4 years. We want them to finish. 52.4 in Three Rivers. South Valley Academy and Rogue River had a 55% 5th-year completer rate. Ursio and Eagle Point had a 58% 5th-year completer rate. Gladiola had an 80% 5th-year completer rate last year. significantly over our kind of like school competitor, like schools. Over the past few years, we've expanded our systems and resources to better support these tiers of need. Our primary onboarding program, the Gladiola Way, teaches students about self-reliance, resilience, problem-solving, collaborative group work, self-advocating, critical thinking, and anger management. These skills help them not only in school, but in their personal lives as well, not least of which being these are the soft skills employers are also looking for. This program helps students feel welcome and creates an immediate sense of belonging, provides opportunities for connections with our staff. We meet weekly, every Tuesday morning, in our Circle of Care meetings. Many representatives from other schools have come over to participate in those. In fact, Rochelle came over today, see that this morning, which was awesome. To review student data and discuss systems of supports for students we have concerns about. So we have Project U Plus in the room, Maslow support or MKV support, Kathy Belly often, McKinney-Vento. So I'll get the thing. We didn't plan this at all. So McKinney-Vento is a student is defined, or their family is defined at basically housing unstable. So it could be houselessness, it could be doubled up housing, it could be a student couch surfing, it could be an unaccompanied minor, it could be a student living in substandard housing. So we had a student that was maybe living in a fifth wheel on their grandparents' property, and they didn't have, adequate plumbing or access to water. Once you qualify under MKV, there's additional supports that can be offered for that. So we have a very high percentage of students at Gladiola that are MKV, McKinney-Vento. And so working through those Maslow tiers of support, if they don't have stable housing, their brain is not ready for a slope intercept form that day. So we have to take care of those needs first. And as we take care of those needs, we're building relationships and trust with students. A lot of our students, and I don't want to stereotype our students in our community, but haven't always had the most trusting or stable relationships with adults. We have to prove to them that we are stable adults. And so I joke at Gladiola that all of our kids are kind of M&Ms. There's a hard shell and a sweet center, and it's our job to get through the hard shell so we can work with them. Because inside of each of them, there's a beautiful human being that's trying to get out and have a healthy future. And so we believe in that. I might be over 3 minutes at this point, but it was your question. Fair, so. Blame Tim. Okay, so we rally a lot of those supports. So students, once they build a sense of trust, we have students every day that come in and say, hey, we were evicted from our house last night. Hey, we had to move in with my aunt. Or, hey, we're living out in Merlin. We really love the school here. Part of McKinney-Vento is if they move, they have a right to go to their home school in that district. So we have a lot of students that we, especially with Jeremy and transportation, with McKinney-Vento, if they're living in Merlin, they have a right to attend school here. So they don't have that break in continuity, a place they feel safe and trusted and hopeful. They don't have that break and have to go to a different school and start over with a new group of people in a new environment, which could really send a kid off track. So during these meetings, we rally mental health supports, homeless and housing resources, school interventions, home visits. I joke often that if you're not showing up for a couple of days, I'm showing up at your house with my ugly mug knocking on your front door. Individual graduation plans and just about anything else that could help support a student. Additionally, we call on every absence every day, every first and fourth period. If you're not there first period, we're calling. Our attendance supervisor is a bulldog for going after this. Where's your kid? What's going on? Where are they? If they're not there after lunch, where's your kid? What's going on? Where are they? How do we get them to school? Do you need any help? And then the parents are like, okay, fine, we'll get them to school. Just stop calling us. Okay, just get your kid to school. That's all we want. Our therapist estimates that over 75% of our students have been physically or sexually assaulted in their past, additionally. So talk about a lack of trust for adults in a lot of cases. To address this, the district has resourced us with a full-time mental health therapist, which is used every single minute of every single day. She has to take some days off sometimes just because of the weight that she carries for our community. The skills trainer in GPAS is a huge help as well. To address this also, last year we restarted the WINGS program, which is a partnership with the Women's Crisis Support Team here in town, helping students understand what a safe, healthy relationship is. Each week we bring in a group of 3, I'll put them as experienced gentlemen, with the Alliance of Generations to have youth mentor circles. We also recognize that drugs, in particular fentanyl, were becoming more prevalent in our community. Most students in our school have a friend or a family member that experiences substance abuse challenges, often with fentanyl. So each quarter, we have a wonderful mom that works for Asante, Mrs. Tammy Garcia. Her and her husband lost a son not too long ago to fentanyl. So she comes in every quarter with our new Gladiella Way students and teaches them to recognize the dangers and harms associated with fentanyl use. Once we get students feeling safe and supported and their basic needs are met, we saw them on the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's a happy, successful future. So Tim tasked us last year with 2 goals: get as many kids across the finish line as possible and make sure they've got next steps. And so we work really hard with Project Youth Plus and our academic counselor to ensure that each student has a next step once they finish high school. Many of our students go on to fill high demand, well-paying jobs. We don't push for college. We push high demand for paying jobs. I joke that I have an EDD and am a principal, and my neighbor owns a plumbing company, makes way more money than I do with no student loans. Right? His kids are living the dream next door with their little Barbie Jeeps I have to avoid when I drive home. It's quite a thing. Anyways, so we had a lot of students, as an example, last summer, went through a certified nurses assistant program. Most of them are making upwards of $25 an hour with benefits and room for growth. For a lot of our kids, that's more than their parents are making out of high school with no student loans. And a lot of those companies, Asante and Providence and things like that, will pay to train you. Med techs, x-ray techs, dental hygienists, those are well-paying jobs that are in high demand that don't require a 4-year, debt to be able to achieve. Our goal is, with opportunities like those, we break the generational patterns of poverty and instability, and those students can provide their own children, possibly, with those first tiers of Maslow's hierarchy. So maybe down the road, more D7 students can come to us ready for that 5th tier right away. Another big thing we've been working on the last few years is kind of the flow and support of students between GPHF. They've done some amazing work there with interventions, and GP Flex has become an alternative education placement also. Like Principal Jarosel mentioned, a large portion of their kids are kind of disengaged or maybe coming from other districts. And we communicate really well. I joke that Keith is like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, if you're familiar with that, and he can find the right fit for a kid. So we work together. We honestly believe that there's a spot for every kid in our district, and we can help them out. That's my spiel. I'm sorry, it was longer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan, any questions?
Thanks for thinking of me, but no.
Okay.
Whoa.
If you talk long enough, you answer all the questions. Sorry. Yes.
I'm gonna take up where Nathan left off.
Okay, thank you.
It's just something I think about. I listen to what you're talking about with Maslow's hierarchy and all of this kind of thing. And then I listen to the statistics about graduation rate at Grants Pass High School. And the struggling kids at Grants Pass High School, it's because of socioeconomic, social reasons, that sort of stuff, just like the kids that come to your area. And one of the major answers is obviously school size. You're a small school. You can have hands-on where that convenience isn't at Grants Pass High School.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, again, for that group of kids at Grants Pass High School, or even in the elementary schools before they get to Grants Pass High School and the middle schools, what do you do? What can be done? What's the answer to that? And I don't have one, except I know in the study I did at Columbia University on school size, the smaller the school, the more effective in dealing with those kind of social issues.
It is. Well, you get to know the students better. We have average 17 to 18 students per class.
Yeah.
It's tough. Grants Pass High School is amazing. There are amazing, caring people that work their tail off every day. It's tough with 1,700 students and 30 plus kids in a class. A lot of students.
The distractions are there too.
Well, there's distractions everywhere. We have distractions at our school too. But it's easier to just kind of be quiet with 35 kids in a class than 16. If you're not participating, we actually redirect for participation. We try to, in the future, when you clock into work, when you're going to work, you're expected to produce and participate. Same with our school. It's time to work. Next step from us is the real world. So they've put a lot of supports in place for freshmen and sophomores with those TAPS program and the grad coaching and that kind of stuff. And if those don't bear fruit, then Gladiola is the next logical step. Most of our kids are juniors and seniors, maybe end of year sophomores. And then we carry the baton with the supports and the interventions they've done, and then try to carry it forward and get them across the finish line.
What is the personnel to student ratio at Gladiola? Not teacher student, but personnel.
Personnel, we've got about 20 staff there, including custodian also. And 170 under our umbrella we've got GPAS, Bridges PM, which is our kind of late afternoon expulsion placement program, GED, and then Gladiola.
And is it much higher at Grants Pass High School?
Yeah, significantly. So it becomes a resource question, right? Our school is more, with that ratio, it's more expensive.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, to have smaller class sizes. So if you're gonna have a bunch of small schools, they have to be resourced differently.
I've seen very large school do the school within the school model, and that would be
But even Crater did that, and Crater is going back to one larger school right now, this year, I think, or next year, correct? Next year. So they tried it for a little bit.
Yes.
And so it's expensive, but I think there's a lot of potential for growth. The communication each year with Mr. Santiago in discipline, with Mr. Garcia, who's like head of counseling there, the assistant principal of counseling, there's a lot more communication. We're getting more refined and nuanced with our referrals, with our identification of kids, with our targeted interventions. And we're supported by our directors to try new things and collect data and see if they work or not. We tried Gladiola Way and it had some results. We're going to try, we don't want to use the word advisory, but we're going to try a family time next year to have more culture building opportunity, like an advisory program. We're going to try that. We're going to collect data. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, we gave it a shot to see if it works.
Is there an advisory program in the high school?
We have study, they don't have an advisory period. We have the study hall.
So there's no group of kids assigned to a specific teacher for the entire year or for the entire 4 years.
They do in the middle
Well,
school.
Study
right?
hall works that way, so we do, each year the teachers get, 20 to 25 kids that they currently have in their classes in study hall, and then within study hall, obviously it's a time to potentially get help, make up tests, make up a lab, do those types of things, but we also do lessons built in throughout the
But
year.
they don't do social things, or they don't do activities that are group
little
building active, a little bit.
Love it.
Just curious.
Middle school's doing advisory though, right?
North is,
North is.
South is talking about it.
So we'll see if it works, but we feel our directors and our superintendent are very supportive of trying, see if it works for kids. Let's collect the data and give it a shot. And so we feel the freedom as a staff, we have a clear shared why as a staff to try new things. And then they know, like, they're not forced upon them. We do it as a collaborative group of caring adults and with a collective why. If it doesn't work, we drop it. If it works, then we're going to double down on it, see if we can improve it. And then also, sorry, one other thing. So we're engaged with the Oregon Alt Ed Association too. So we're trying to not just reinvent this wheel in our district, but communicate with other districts as well and with the Oregon Department of Education to get out of our individual silos. What's working in Astoria, what's working in Prineville, and then seeing if we can get those groups together. So in April, we're doing our second conference to get the people together and discuss what strategies we're doing. So if we can learn from someone else's mistakes, it'll save some time and money.
So Keith mentioned a waiting list to get into Gladiola. How big is that waiting list and what is our capacity at Gladiola?
We're limited by, we've got about 170 total right now in all of our programs. Our facilities with the bathroom and cafe, mental health support, we kind of max at 105 in Gladiola proper. Last year, we had students referred that were closer to graduation, so we were able to move students kind of quicker through the process. This year, we won't have as many grads, but our dropout list is less than half of what it was at this time last year. And so we had students that come over that were referred with fewer credits, and so it's kind of taking longer. But what's interesting, last year, we talk a lot about this with staff. As kids move through the system further, it was tougher to keep that culture. So one of the reasons the advisory program came about was how do we have this speed of supporting kids, but also maintain our core culture is what we're trying to balance.
And how many people are on your list that want to join?
It
you?
depends, it fluctuates. And sometimes it's quite a few, sometimes it's less, and then usually it really populates and starts to grow. 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the quarter. We bring students in at each quarter so they can go through Gladiola Way, our onboarding program. And we work with the counselors there and the parents to determine who are the best fits for us. And then from us, we can refer to our GED program as well, too. So.
And occasionally it goes back the other way.
Well, it does, sometimes it goes back the other way, but also what we've done, which I think is really important, our typical expulsion programs, GPAS, Bridges PM. We've worked a lot the last year or two in making those more short-term supported programs to try to transition students back to the center of the learning community, Grants Pass High School, Gladiola, quicker. So instead of spending a year in an expulsion program, they're maybe spending a couple of quarters. And then this year we started kind of pioneering this hybrid program where they'll do GPAS in the afternoon for those additional supports, but maybe they're at GPHS in the morning, trying to earn their way back full-time. So we're trying to transition them back to more school faster than keeping them in an isolated program.
Thank
Yeah, good
you
question.
all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent
Thank-
job. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, I've talked with kids from Grants Pass High School in the Avid program, and I've talked with kids in your program. You guys are doing a wonderful work. They are wonderful kids,
They're
despite their struggles.
hard shells, but sweet centers.
Yeah, good work.
Tim, what's our total D7 staff? Do you know what our,
Oh, I don't know. 850. Is that accounting coaches? Okay, so 15.
just curious the ratio, and I know as you get larger, in a lot of ways, you become a little bit less efficient, but you also increase efficiency. So it sounds like your staffing is around 18-19% would be the ratio of staff to students, and the high school is going to be somewhere around 16-17%. So they're actually not that far off. It sounds like, but just curious, looking at numbers and how to create that culture that you're talking about that, you know, happens at GP Flex. And Michelle, that's great that you're going over and visiting some of those meetings. There's some really cool things that was just mentioned from all of you. That's exciting.
It's really a system. All of us are really good at working together to find the right place for it.
Because everyone's different.
Personalized education plan
There you go.
all day.
Pop quiz when it's
All
coming.
day, every day. I'm dreaming about them at night.
Not a question for tonight, but we do talk about we are thinking
Yes.
a lot, and for some reason GED kind of floats outside all of our data and stats and stuff, and so I'm like, you know, why isn't GED part of GP Flex or something? It's just a question, not like, I don't want an answer tonight.
GED is part of Flex. That's part of Flex.
Yeah, but it's accessible. It's accessible from any of our programs. Any student can enter GED once they qualify. You have to be a year behind in credits, 16 or older, less than 19 at the beginning of the year, and show an 8th grade reading proficiency. If you qualify on that, then you can take the out and participate in the GED program from any program.
Great presentation.
Okay. Bye now.
Hey, that's me, I think.
Superintendent report already.
Some board information earlier today about the local service plan for the ESD. Gave you some information there. The local service plan, as I told you, is really just the menu of options provided to all the school districts in Jackson, Josephine, and Clement counties. It's not a lot of stuff to dive into on this as far as the board goes, but the board by law of all the component districts have to approve the local service plan. And then the ESD board will vote on that as well. So. Any questions about the local service plan? Say I sent email this morning.
I thought that was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Happy to do that. Well, I figured with 4 new board members, maybe this was the first time you even heard there was a local service plan, and I thought that you'd want to. But apparently, for some of the old pros, it was good information as well. So,
Well, I'd like to say the district's having a large part in making ESP menu plan what it is today.
well, I'm glad you did. So that is good. So, you're getting a high five. When I arrived on the South Coast CSD offered one item in their service area. That was life skills, and everybody on the South Coast had to be a part. That was it. And so we were spending more than $7 million on about 80 kids. Like $7 million on 80 kids, they should all walk away with a 4-year degree from the university. So we made some changes there, but yes. Yeah, and I know that John Higgins was big on flow through dollars. So that the money that wasn't being spent came back to the district, and so that was work that was done years ago. So. All right, wanted to make sure you are aware that Southern Oregon ESD would love to have a budget committee member from District 7. Nathan, you raise your hand.
Smells good.
Well, so when I joined the board, it was just expected that the newest member would be the new.
Well put.
I thought the parliamentarian, that was one of their. Yeah. All right, so not hearing a lot of.
So there's like 4 people who are candidates in my experience.
Need to know more about it.
Yeah,
Well,
you're gonna go
it's
to
a-
2 or 3 meetings and you're gonna say yes.
It's a on-the-job training.
Coming up in March is sort of classified appreciation week, and we have some cards floating around the table here. We're hoping, oh, they're over here. If you haven't signed them, and you don't wanna be here late tonight, we can hand them to you now and we can kind of sign them now. And I think some of you have already signed, right? Okay. And we have some goodies planned that will be delivered to the schools and the bus barn and other locations, right? All right. Point your attention to KL-AR, the administrative rule there. We made a change that was in line with what the policy committee said last time. It's highlighted on page 2 of 3 on the KL complaint form. That says that the board may conduct an investigation themselves, which is one we talked about previously. Up there. Questions about that? Great. How you do your reports. And then finally, we have awarded the Lincoln Elementary Seismic and Redwood Roof Project to the ZCS because they were the only company to bid. So it was easily done. And the Lincoln seismic upgrade, we remember we got a $2.5 million grant from the state of Oregon on that. So that's going to cover all the costs on it. We have applied for the same seismic grant for Redwood, and we're hoping we would get that this year. And then we may not do the roof this year at Redwood. Or what is Tommy? Tell me out here.
We would find out in April whether we're awarded the grant or not. We would then have some internal discussions about, do we do it 2-phase, do the roof this summer and do the internal seismic work the next year, or if it becomes a 2-year project where it's essentially the summer of 25, where the whole shebang gets taken care of.
Yeah, but Christine's not here, so we can do whatever we want, right? Okay. Questions on the superintendent?
And we followed all the laws. We can award, even if there's only one
Yes,
bid.
all the proper steps.
Right, on to the business part, 7.0. No,
6.0.
6.0. Anybody have a board report and special concern?
I have one. I came home from dinner with my wife and it was a flock of flamingos in my. And whoever sent those to me depleted my 19th hole on the golf course refreshment budget. Cause I had to give it all to this. Did anybody else get stuck with this? Okay, yeah, stuck in a good way.
Send them all over town.
You've been flamingo this year.
I think it's flock, right?
I got flamingo last year.
Yeah.
I got
I wasn't
Debbie
even-
said-
the joke.
You said-
So this year I gave it to donuts.
I passed it on to the board chair.
That's okay. They flew away before I could even really get to them. Maybe they flew back to your house too. Yeah. I see you.
See,
Oh,
that's a good one.
So,
I don't see you.
so Mike mentioned that there's a new WINGS program from the Women's Crisis Support Team. And years ago, that program was also at Grants Pass High School. I saw a presentation of it that was just outstanding. And I had mentioned that to Director Dinkins a few months ago, and he reported to me that he was now at Gladiola and how glad he was, and I'm hopeful that Grants Pass High School can bring that back also. It really touches on so many things about what it is to go on a date, and how do you prevent date rape, and how do you act respectfully and manfully at the same time, kinds of real life social issues that the high schoolers are facing. And I am very pleased that that is going on. That we're able to bring that back. And I'm hopeful for expansion.
Are we still on board reports and special concerns?
Yes.
I have one, so I'm out of town for several days on a work assignment. And my son's at home and he just texted me a picture of a meal he made that he learned in culinary arts class. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, totally impressed. And so shout out to culinary arts teacher in that program. I guess he doesn't need us anymore. He can cook.
That's the first level on Maslow's hierarchy.
I wanted to say, thank you to Tim and Tim, whoever helped you draft your recent, statement on Parent Square about the Youth Truth Survey, and just wanted to highlight how much I thought that honored the idea of parents' rights and transparency as far as the message sending out to all the parents and anybody else that gets that. I really, really appreciate that. So whoever had anything to do with that, thank you.
Danny and Trish.
Thank you both.
Kristen,
Kristen, you too. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so I was wondering if there was anybody here who could talk to us about these. Step down.
No.
What do you want to know about?
There's a one visit.
In Oregon? Come on.
It's
cutting board, kids made it in our facility. Sorry, it was a little late. I mean,
Oh, they're great.
they don't have all the time in the world to make them, so. Laminated, put together, and then they cut them out. If they need to get refinished, you just mineral oil in on there. So all kids, there's a bunch of kids that participated that were in the BSEC program.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Appreciation for you getting it. Thank you.
Very nice.
Very
Well,
very
well,
nice.
really well done.
Really well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be on the board. How about one?
Okay, 7.0 now, action items. So 7.1, approval of first reading of policy. BDC and BBA. Would you like to take them together? Separately? I was- yeah. Would you like them singly?
Is there gonna be a change?
I know.
Is anybody concerned about either one of them? Please, Nathan?
Well, so Debbie has a concern.
Okay, then we'll take them separate.
So on BBAA, I would prefer, instead of chairperson under item 2, request for legal opinion, that it be just chair. Many of our policies have chair instead of chairman or chairperson. And I would like to work towards unity of just having chair, because that seems to be a short, easy, universal word instead of chairman or chairperson. It kind of emphasizes to me that there's different genders going on there, where chair is just simple and explains the position.
A motion.
So I move that we change it to chair, the board chair, with the consent of the board.
So are you putting a motion forward that we accept policies BDC and BDAA with the change in BDAA from chairperson to chair?
That's my exact motion.
Can we separate DDC?
Is there a second?
Member Schmidt seconds. That's my exact second.
But, hang on, I'm
Wait,
sorry, discussion, point of discussion. Member Sable, I couldn't see the language, and I don't see it in my packet, I was looking through, but on BDC executive sessions, the language I was looking for was, the mechanism for what trips an executive session. I couldn't see it, it wasn't scrolling on the screen.
Member Smith, Nathan, I found it. I can read it for you.
Please.
It says an executive session may be included as an agenda item of an existing meeting in accordance with board policy BDDC, board meeting agenda, or held at its own meeting. Proper notice is required. If open session is held prior to executive session, convened by order of the board chair upon request of 3 board members or by common consent of the board for a purpose authorized under Oregon Revised Statute ORS 192.660 during a regular, special, or emergency meeting. I don't think I need to read the rest of that, but I think
That's what it is.
that's it.
That's what you're looking for, right? That 3 board members can request an executive session.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm not seeing that, but if you say it's there, I'll take your word for it.
Just look at, you can see your screen, right?
Can you see our screen?
Sometimes it's pretty difficult to watch on.
He just read it off the screen.
Yeah, so it's just the 3rd paragraph down. Read the first 2 lines.
Thank you. Got it. Thank you.
So discussion,
Yes, will we do this or shall we do this?
Oh, no.
you may do this. Okay, having a second, Simon can have a roll call vote.
Member Sable?
Yes.
Member Sable?
Said yes.
Yes.
Member Dipdahl?
Yes.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Member Brownell?
Yes.
Member Ricketts?
Yes.
Member Long?
Yes. Okay. 7.2 plan course statements. Take them individually.
Member Brownell, I move that we accept the plan course statements 7.2.1, 7.22, 7.23, 7.24, 7.25, 6, and 7 altogether.
Sable seconds.
Having a second, is there any discussion?
I'm really pleased that the staff continues to work diligently to provide for the needs of our students, creating more opportunities for success.
The only thing I'd like to say is I hope in the climate science class that they really look at a project-based approach where they really focus on creating something tangible they can do as a class. Just a thought.
For sure. Tanya?
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt.
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes,
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Wilson.
Yes. Moving on to 7.3, calendars for the 24-25 school year. I did entertain a motion.
Member Schmidt moves that we accept the calendars 7.31, 7.32, and 7.33.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Member Brownell will second.
Having a second, is there any discussion?
So I know that a lot of work goes into these calendars, but I did notice that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the elementary is in school for that.
It's a trade day, so there was no school, no kids and no staff.
Okay, well, I don't see it listed that way on the calendar is why I asked. Maybe it's in on the little,
27.
That's the secondary calendar. If you scroll back up to the elementary calendar. That's the secondary calendar.
so it's in,
Keep going up.
okay, and it's in pink, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is,
Yeah,
that's
ours.
elementary.
Yep.
It wasn't listed in the summary in the middle. So that's,
Oh.
you know, so you might want to
Yeah.
put that on there. That used to be very controversial. I must say. But as a parent back then, it would have been very helpful.
Tanya?
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Brownell,
Yes,
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Wilson.
Yes. 7.4, approval of SO ESD local service plan.
Member Brownell, I move that we accept the SOESD service plan for District 7.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Member Dibdall seconds.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Tanya?
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt.
Yes.
Member Richardson,
Yes.
member Brownell,
Yes,
member Wilson.
Yes. 7.5, approval of 23-24 budget calendar for the 24-25 budget. I'd entertain a motion.
Member Brownell, I move that we accept the 2023-2024 budget calendar.
Is there a second?
Member Schmidt seconds.
And second, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. We can Skype into these, yes?
Yes. Okay. Yep, I'll be available. Where are you gonna be?
Several places. I'll be in Hawaii, one of them. And then I'll be in Denver on another one.
You can just give me your proxy, let me know.
Where- I'll be working. I won't be playing, I'll be working.
We have second?
We do.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Gary? You look ready. No? Okay. Fine.
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith.
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Brownell,
Yes,
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Wilkins.
Yes. 7.6, approval of postponing new EL curriculum through 25-26 school year.
He's gonna speak to that real quick.
Yeah, real quick, so we'll do it real quick. So, we do need to take some action on our, curriculum adoption. We did an ODE, desk audit, and we just simply haven't taken action, so we need to do that. And so our recommended action is to postpone adopting the EL curriculum. It's also the suggestion from ODE, and I'll tell you why we're, recommending that we postpone it. In the next slide. So right now, if you look at the data, and we shared this with you, I think back in October, maybe November. Our freshman on track data for English learners, 78.3% are on track to graduate. All across the district is 74.6% to graduate, so slightly higher for our EL population than for our everybody population. Not a lot, but a little bit. And then also, next one. Our 5-year graduation rates, which as Michael pointed out, are the ones that we really look to. Grants Pass High School, you will see that when compared with the state of Oregon and our EL world, we are at or above the state average in every category, whether it comes to total EL population, Hispanic students, former EL population, so forth and so on. So the basic gist of the data is that the curriculum that we have currently works. And so we would like to continue to use it. Next little slide. Currently, we use what's called the ETRO system, which are ELD kits for our grades K through 5. We use a curriculum called EL Achieve for grades 6 through 12. And then our teachers design individualized lessons and to match the Oregon standards. We've been very, very successful with it. Teachers are aware that it's being recommended and they were okay with it. Big reason too for not adopting yet is I think the next slide. We are about to purchase an English language arts curriculum for the elementary schools, right, Susan? And we're going to spend just a tiny bit of money on it in the range of $700 and some thousand. And so it doesn't make sense for us to not wait and see what's adopted and what supports and supplemental supports and so forth and so on come with that curriculum before we adopt an EL curriculum. So for those reasons, we are asking that the board wait a couple of years before we go out and adopt a new EL curriculum. And if you're so inclined, there might even be a draft motion that would.
Member Schmidt moves to postpone the adoption of the new EL curriculum and continue using the current curriculum through at least the 25-26 school year. I wrote it exactly like this.
Excellently crafted, very well.
Member Smith seconds.
Having a second, is there any discussion?
Danny, how's the 4-year numbers? That was the 5-year graduation or completer?
I'd have to go back and look, but
Okay.
I think we're at least on par.
Okay.
So.
That's it.
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith.
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Richardson,
Yes.
sorry, member Brownell,
yes,
member Wilkins.
Oh, yeah. Well trained.
Tanya? Tanya,
Yes, sir.
sort of a technical question. Did we actually have to get a motion to approve those first two policies correctly.
Well, Gary.
I believe I made a motion and I think Joe seconded.
But we had two policies and you were talking about the second one.
Yeah.
Which is-
Tim's motion.
But Tim's motion did include both.
Tim's suggestion.
Suggestion.
Motion.
Suggestion for a motion.
Debbie threw her voice.
And then we
Deepened it.
discussed.
Just wanted to make sure that his suggestion included both.
It did.
policies.
It did. Okay.
It did.
Get your meeting dates and we're out. Adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Go home.
Happy Valentine's Day.
All general session back to order. I will entertain a motion for 10.11.
Member Brownell, I move that we approve the memorandum of agreement between the Southern Oregon Bargaining Council, Grants Pass Association of Classified Employees, and Grants Pass School District Number 7.
Member Schmidt seconds.
A second.
Member Sable,
Yes.
member Dipdahl,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Richardson, member. Are the, member Richardson,
Yes.
member Brownell.
Yes.
Member Wilkins.
Yes.
Want to put all you men in the line.
Okay, we're adjourned.